Hello everyone, I am Daniele Pagani and I am reporting now from the city of Mosul in Iraq, recently liberated by the grip of the Islamic State. 3 years back, 39 Indian workers disappeared from this very city. They were abducted by the Islamic State. This mystery keeps haunting their families back in India. But what is the Indian government doing about that? What is the Iraqi government doing about that? And how did the Islamic State manage to scar humanity beyond the imaginable? We will talk and have a look at all these stories. But first, this report. Take a look.
Celebrations in Mosul. Gloom in this Punjab village. Bright future on the horizon in Mosul. The past haunts the present in Punjab. Meet Anita from Hoshiarpur in the northern Indian state of Punjab. She says her husband Gurdeep went to Iraq in the hope of a bright future, but was taken by the dreaded terror group ISIS in 2014. And 3 years later, no one knows where he is.
It's been 4 years that we've been looking for him. We have no news about him.
Anita is not alone in her grief. Families of 39 Indians wake up to unimaginable pain each day, their thoughts oscillating between hope and dread. Hope that their loved ones will come back now that Mosul has been liberated. Fear that the worst has already happened. A top Indian minister and former general visited Iraq in search of the 39 missing Indians.
After the declaration that Mosul has been liberated, the Ministry of External Affairs decided that we must send our people to find out the 39 Indians who were held captive by ISIS. We are hopeful that we will be able to find them, because in these last almost 2 years, we haven't had a negative input so far. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to find out.
The Indian government has repeatedly maintained all Indians are safe. But for these families, statements make little sense.
I traveled to Iraq to understand what could have possibly happened to these 39 Indians, and during my staying I witnessed an enormous amount of destruction left behind by the Islamic State. What could have possibly happened to those Indians? Why the Islamic State abducted civilians honestly working in these countries? What did they use those Indians for? We spoke with the people, we spoke with Iraq intelligence, and a picture slowly started to emerge.
The Iraqi army defeated the Islamic State in Mosul, but despite victory, the second largest city in Iraq faces a humanitarian crisis. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their relatives, their houses, their hopes. They live in refugee camp without knowing what their future will be. In this humanitarian crisis, there is a bit of India. 39 workers disappeared from Mosul in 2014 when the Islamic State conquered the city.
Till 15th of June 2014, he was talking to me and telling me those people are saying that we will send you India, but the thing is this, your government or anybody else should talk to us, then only we will send you.
They were construction workers. They came to Mosul to work in major civilian and housing projects. Close to the University of Mosul in the Jamia district of the city, there is a lake tower complex. Hundreds of apartments meant for students and teachers of one of the largest Iraqi universities.
I am inside the city of Mosul in the Jamia district, and behind me there is the University Lake Towers complex. This is where the 39 Indian workers who got abducted by the Islamic State in 2014 were working. What we know from local sources is that the Islamic State, when they conquered the city, they also took control over this area and they started dismantling the building in order to sell material, the cement, the iron and the steel which was here. We're of course traveling by our imagination, but it's not too far to think that perhaps the Islamic State used those Indian laborers who were here in this very place in order to help them to dismantle the building and sell them to people coming from outside, mostly from Syria and from other small enterprises who profited and benefited out of the Islamic State stealing all the material in this complex.
Sources within the intelligence told us that the Islamic State used foreign workers to dig tunnels and steal all the construction material possible. When food became rare, even for Islamic State terrorists, some enslaved people may have possibly been worked to death. There is another place in Mosul where Indians were seen working, a stadium which lies within the western part of the city, in the Bab Sinjar neighborhood.
Behind me, you can see the stadium in which the 39 Indians were seen working. They were not alone. There were many other workers from many other countries, but these 39 Indians could not manage to escape in 2014 when the Islamic State conquered the city of Mosul. The structure is unfinished. They were still working when the Islamic State came, and it lies now within a pile of rubble, which is the western part of the city of Mosul.
Hard to define Western Mosul a city. Everything is destroyed. There is no one around, and the smell of thousands of corpses buried underneath the rubble is pungent and persistent. The few people we meet look like ghosts, exhausted and traumatized by months of constant battle. If the 39 Indian citizens remained in Mosul throughout the war, hopes of finding them alive are feeble at best. Finding their remains would at least help their families to know what happened, putting an end to their constant state of anxiety. But given the situation, this too will be an extreme challenge.
In order to reach this point where I am standing, we have been driving through at least, I would say, 1 kilometer, and everything is destroyed. Houses are grounded, there is nothing which is left standing. This is how the old city of Mosul, the western part of Mosul, looks like. And it'll take ages for the Iraqi government to put this city back on track. But we went beyond that. We tried to understand where these 39 Indians were working. They were working and building an enormous set of apartments for teachers and professors of the Mosul University, and they were also working to build a new stadium. But it is difficult to find out people who actually knew them. The stadium lies in the western part of the city, which is completely destroyed. But we managed to meet some belonging to the Indian communities in Erbil who still remember the tragic moment in 2014. Here is what they say.
I really feel bad this thing happened. What happened not only with Indians, there is so many friends also for me. They are staying in Mosul. They are so many times coming in bazaar. It's really bad thing happened. But that moment, I heard that 39 people they are missing. They captured the arrest by the IS, and not only Indians, other nationality also, same like Turkish. And after a few days, I heard that they relieved. But and after that, I didn't ask and I didn't watch the relief is finished. And that time, Indian consul also helping the people. Those people go. They like to go back to India, they can go and they collect the ticket and they go back. But that time we are not going. We are staying here because I'm staying with my family. If I go back to India, what I'll do? I have to work. I have to fight with daily life. So the life also, and finally I'm more comfortable because I know the language, same like the Kurdish people.
And that time when this happened, because the Islamic State also came very close to Erbil, there was a moment.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment?
Yeah,
What do you remember?
I remember it's suddenly around 9:30, between 10 in morning. That time, oh my God, all bazaar is become empty. No one is bazaar, and I'm sitting in this shop. I'm sitting with my wife, so my wife told me, "Okay, let's go home. Everybody is moving." My boss told me, "Ratan, if something happened wrong, this is the address. You have to go to Shaklawa, and Shaklawa from we'll go Turkey or another place." We are waiting the television, watching the television, waiting for what is the new. It's near come to. It will take 45 minutes. Far from the Erbil, from Bazar to it's called Gomrik. The one is the place. They are coming close, and finally, it's very good news with Peshmerga. Is really helpful. They are brave soldier. They are helping and they are fighting with IS soldier and they free the Erbil.
We are trying to understand what happened to these 39 Indian workers here in Iraq. But back in India, the government is taking an effort to also try to understand what happened. Here is what a government official had to say about this matter. Listen in.
At the moment, we remain engaged very sincerely and very seriously at a high level. Our ambassador has been alerted. Our Consul General in Erbil has been alerted. We have also requested the Iraqi authorities, and they have confirmed to us that they have sensitized their forces, their security agencies about the presence of Indians. And if they see any Indians, not just these 39, but any Indians, we have requested them to inform us, our ambassador or our consul general. We have also requested the Iraqi authorities to alert the airport, so that if just in case some Indians appear at the airport, so our embassy and our consulate should be informed. So we have covered all these 4 possible grounds, possible points. The Iraqi authorities, our ambassador, our consul general, the airport. So whichever way, if any Indian appears there, we hope to get the information about that.
Despite the continuing effort to trace the 39 Indians who are still missing, the stench of death emanates from all the areas once controlled by the Islamic State. Here is what I found. So this, behind me, is just one example of the level of destruction close to the old city, the western part of Mosul. So this is what the Iraqi government has to deal with now that the battle is more or less over. I say more or less because there are still sleeping cells, perhaps within the city. IEDs needs to be cleared, booby traps, explosive that the Islamic State left before retreating and before getting defeated. It'll take a long time. So when we talk about what a city, how does a city looks like after a conflict, this is it. I'm standing right now in front of the civil defense headquarters inside the city of Mosul. What do these people do? They collect all the corpses lying underneath the rubble in the city of Mosul every day, tens of corpses. People come here, they demand, they ask them to go and find their families. They have no news for their families. And the access to the old city of Mosul has been blocked because there are many improvised explosive devices and booby traps. Therefore, it's too dangerous. And people do not know if their relatives are still alive. This is one of the many post-conflict tragedies which is affecting the city of Mosul right now after the victory against the Islamic State. This is one of the main roads in Mosul, and behind me we can see one example of the level of destruction of the city. So when we talk about the 39 Indians who got abducted from Mosul by the Islamic State in 2013, and we talk about how difficult it could possibly be to find them either dead or alive, this is where the security forces will need to search. Even removing the entire amount of rubble in the city will be very problematic. We obviously hope they are alive, but we're also afraid that they are no more. Perhaps they are still in Mosul, or perhaps they are somewhere either in Iraq or Syria. And after months of fierce and hard battle, finally, the Iraqi Prime Minister could announce the victory against the Islamic State in the city of Mosul. Let's listen in at what he had to say at that point of time.
أعلن هنا من هنا وللعالم أجمع انتهاء
I announce from here to the whole world the end and the failure and the collapse of the terrorist state of falsehood and terrorism which the terrorist Daesh announced from Mosul 3 years ago. By the sacrifices of the Iraqis and their efforts and their blood, we were able to achieve victory over this mean and murderous state and send it to the trash heap of history.
The city of Mosul is now almost fully liberated, but fighting is still going on in some neighborhoods of the city. The Islamic State, the remaining fighters of the Islamic State, did not surrender. And before getting defeated, they even blew up one of the most historical mosques in the city.
This is Mosul today. This too is Mosul today. The Tigris River flows in the middle of Mosul, dividing the city in two different paths. The east, more modern and now getting back on track, and the west, the old city, now completely destroyed. Shops, houses, schools, hospitals, there is nothing standing. The two sides do not even seem to belong to the same Mosul. Life seems normal in the eastern part.
You might ask yourself why you should be interested in watching a journalist having some food. Well, this is because I'm having this very good falafel inside the city of Mosul, in the eastern part of the city. The last time I was here, months back, this moment was impossible even to imagine. This place was completely shut down, there was no one, there was Daesh fighting, and this is one of the many signs of a city which fortunately is getting back on track. It'll take a long time, especially for the old part of the city, but hopefully in few months we will be able to do this very same thing in the old town.
Death holds its grip on the western part. It will take years, if it will ever be possible, to bring life back to the old city. It is estimated that Iraq will need $100 billion to rebuild Mosul alone. During the last 4 months of the offensive, the Islamic State hid in these very lanes. Every house has a basement and they are all interconnected. Terrorists were able to move underground and resist the massive coordinated coalition and Iraqi offensive. Airstrikes started hammering the old city, tens a day, a rain of death which killed a still unknown number of civilians, which is believed to be in thousands. The offensive in the eastern part was different. Streets are much wider and it has been logistically easier for the army to move around and conduct daily operations. As a whole, the offensive to retake Mosul is perhaps one of the hardest unconventional wars ever fought in West Asia. An urban battle that spared no one. But the Iraqi government and its international partners are moving as fast as possible to allow citizens to return to their houses, and the result in the eastern part of the city is for all to see. One can only hope the same will happen to the old city soon.
This is one of the many streets inside Mosul coming back to life after the Islamic State has been defeated. But this very lane tells the story of two cities. To this side, we can see life coming back on track. We can see shops opening. It is possible to buy food, to buy water, to buy watches for that matter, or some snacks. It looks like war wasn't even there. The Iraqi government took a lot of effort to get the city back on track. But on the other side of the road, we have another story. The story of a city which got trapped in months of a fierce and tough battle. Buildings are still grounded, and this tells the tale of the western part of the city, where the old town lies, which is a place which looks like an enormous pile of rubble. Nothing is working, there is no electricity, and perhaps thousands of dead civilians are still there, buried underneath the rubble. Daniele Pagani and video journalist Martin Aim from Mosul for WION. This is the western Mosul of today. It hardly resembles a city. Months of airstrikes reduced an area where hundreds of thousands of people were living to little more than a pile of rubble. The atmosphere is tragically surreal. The wind blows between battered buildings and there is nearly no one around. The only people we come across are children. They are covered in dust, thirsty, traumatized and emaciated. After months of guerrilla warfare, the Iraqi army managed to reach less than 100 meters from the most important symbol of the Islamic State, the Al-Nuri mosque in the old city of Mosul. It was the first time that both soldiers and officers truly savored the taste of victory. Announcing the defeat of the Islamic State from the very place where it was given birth would have certainly had an impact on the few remaining terrorists. But before reaching the place where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared the beginning of the caliphate, the building exploded. Today, there is nearly nothing left of the 800-year-old mosque. The Islamic State fighters who were barricaded inside the building blew it up. The terror outfit blamed the coalition forces, but videos show clearly that the explosion came from inside. Once again, the Islamic State had shown its real face. Death before capitulation, destruction and violence until the very end. Even if this meant blowing up a place sacred to the very Muslim religion they claim to represent. The reasons behind the Islamic State decision to blow the Al-Nuri mosque up will perhaps remain forever unknown. Some say it was a declaration of defeat. Others say it was to impede to the Iraqi government to use the holy place to declare victory in front of the world. What is clear though is that there is nothing left of the entire Al-Nuri mosque, a place where once thousands of people came to pray. I am standing right now in front of the very famous minaret, the Leaning minaret, adjacent to the Al-Nuri mosque. It is here, in 2014, that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi proclaimed the beginning of the so-called Islamic State, one of perhaps the most violent terrorist organization active during the century. And it is here that today, in July 2017, the military history of the Islamic State comes to an end. Daniele Pagani and journalist Martin Aim from the Al-Nuri mosque in Mosul for WION. But let me take you now through the history of the Islamic State, perhaps one of the most cruel terrorist organization ever. The terror outfit, in a short span of time, managed to reach the global scale. They touched Europe, Turkey, the central part of Africa called Sahel. They have a presence in the Philippines, but of course, West Asia, Iraq, and Syria in particular are bearing the maximum brunt of their presence. Behind me you can see one example of their cruelty. It is the Mosul University Library, completely burned. The Islamic State burnt it before running away when the Iraqi army was reaching this very place where I am right now. The Islamic State, or the Islamic State of Syria and Iraq, is called Daesh here, and it managed to control largest swaths of land from 2014 till now, when it is under perhaps the final attack. Take a look at this report.
These armed militants spreading terror in the streets of Iraq and Syria became one of the most potent disrupting forces the world had ever seen. Unprecedented in their reach, unmatched in brutality. They beheaded journalists, executed soldiers, and shot their victims. They threw innocent civilians off the rooftops.
I wanted to die when I saw them cutting my brother's hand. As long as I live, I won't forget that moment. I wish Daesh would be defeated in all battles because they harmed people and destroyed Iraq.
The group came to be known as Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL. It also went by the name Daesh. Later, it would simply be called the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and finally declared itself the Islamic State. And he is the man behind the terror group, a man whose name itself strikes terror, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. An elusive man rarely photographed, Baghdadi was heavily involved with religion in his youth. So much so that his family nicknamed him the Believer. Baghdadi later got involved with Sunni militants as United States-led forces invaded Iraq, deposing Saddam Hussein. Not many know Baghdadi was once in American captivity, held at Camp Bakka in 2004. And then the Americans made one of the biggest mistakes, a mistake that would cost humanity very heavily. Baghdadi was released. The year was 2011. Baghdadi had risen through the ranks among the insurgents, and in neighboring Syria, a civil war had started. A fertile ground for al-Baghdadi and his group of savages to unleash terror in the name of Islam. 2 years later, ISIL was born. In late 2014, the American President Barack Obama declared war on the terror group.
We will degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL through a comprehensive and sustained counterterrorism strategy. First, we will conduct a systematic campaign of airstrikes against these terrorists. Working with the Iraqi government, we will expand our efforts beyond protecting our own people and humanitarian missions so that we're hitting ISIL targets as Iraqi forces go on offense.
Over the course of these past 2 years, a coalition of more than 60 nations has united to defeat ISIL. We have conducted tens of thousands of precision strikes to support Iraqi operations. We've trained and equipped more than 54,000 Iraqi forces. And we supported our Iraqi partners as they fought to liberate their country.
And now one of the strongholds of ISIS in Iraq, Mosul, has been liberated. But the group continues to hold territory in neighboring Syria's Raqqa, where the civil war has entered its 7th year. Needless to say, the war on terror continues. Bureau Report, WION.
And that's all we have for now on this show. But for more news and reports from Iraq, please remain with us. From me, Daniele Pagani, goodbye and thanks for watching.